Hi everybody, this is Sue Reynolds with the American Student Achievement Institute, and we are talking with schools that are doing redesigning school counseling and also guiding all kids. The focus of this webinar, our last webinar of the year, is to develop to review the master plan for your school counseling program, to look at your master calendar, and then to do some odds and ends tasks at the end of this process to help prepare your activities for implementation. So to get started, here's the agenda for today. Kind of just went over that. We're quick review and some updates, and then we'll look at the master plan, master calendar. And in preparation, we'll be looking at preparing a budget for next school year, looking at developing lesson plans, some professional development activities, and also some program advocacy activities. So quick review. So we've now completely worked through all of our foundations. We started out at the beginning of the year working together, where you put together a steering team to facilitate change, and then your council were the decision makers for your school counseling program. The council was a broad-based group that really brought lots of different perspectives to the table. And the first thing the groups did was to create a vision statement. That was kind of the picture of where everyone wanted to go. It was really what brought your council, we hope, together to look at developing a common dream that you would all work towards. Once that dream was in place, then we started taking a step back and looking at really focused goals that would get us towards that dream. So we started out with just every choice conceivable that successful students make, and you came up with a lot of goals. Some of those goals you're not actually even addressing this year, but it's just all of the choices that you want kids to make. And then we said, okay, what choices are so important that we're going to start out with those choices? And we called them those priority goals. So anything that you're currently working on, any student choice that you are currently working on, that you're doing first, those are your priority goals. And then we went a step even further and said, okay, of all those priority goals, the things you're working on now, which are so important that we want to give them more of our time and energy, and those will be our focus goals. So once we had the focus goals developed, and that was really a small amount of goals, 2 or 3 goals, then we really looked at doing 2 things with those focus goals. One was to do a root cause analysis to help us identify why kids weren't making those choices. And then we also, for the focus goals, created a data target. So we said, okay, if 28% of the kids are making this choice right now, what percentage do we want to get that up to by the end of next school year? So we came up with root causes and data targets for each of the focus goals. And then finally, the very last thing we did is we created activities. So we said, what are we going to do to address those root causes? And we'll put those in place as activities. So really, we can also think about this now going from bottom up. When we put those activities in place next year, we're going to impact these root causes, and as a result of hitting those root causes, more students will start to make the choices in our focus goals. And when we reach more of these goals, we'll start to move closer to our dream, closer to our vision. So all the foundations are in place. You guys have done a phenomenal amount of work, lots of discussions, lots of people involved, and you have everything, all the foundations that you need in place right now. So now we're moving to action. You've got the activities identified. Now we need to take action on those activities. So again, the other thing that we did right at the end of our last time together, we talked about how some of you already have community organizations that are also working towards those focus goals. So we know that for some of you, you've put the community organization activities in the system as well, so that we can show that not only are counselors working on those focus goals, but now also some of the community organizations are also coming in as partners to help you work on those goals. Some of you may have some of these other delivery methods in place. If you currently have a teacher advisor program, how can we design those activities to help you address your focus goals? If you already have your elementary teachers who are implementing some guidance curriculum or have the ability to, how could they impact your focus goals? What can parents do to impact your focus goals? So in RSC, we're focusing on counselor activities, a little bit of community organization activities. In Guiding All Kids, we're eventually focusing on all of these delivery methods. Okay, but the foundations are the same in RSC and Guiding All Kids. Okay, couple of updates. First of all, in the work that we're doing today, you may decide that you want to omit an activity. And if you do, chances are you won't, but if you do, we want to make sure that you notify us, give us a chance to think about all the crosswalk reports and where you may be taking yourself out of compliance for Gold Star or RAMP if you take work out, take an activity out that we've already approved. So that's really important to please contact us, Debbie or Janet, or I guess Debbie in your case, if you have an activity that you want to, that you're going to omit. Okay, then also we know that if some of your schools are working with Lilly Endowment, I think all of the GAK schools are working with Lilly and some of the RSC schools. We know you have some conference calls coming up with Lilly, and if there's any way that we can help you prep for those activities, we'd be happy to do that. When we look at the master plan today, I think that's going to be a report that would be very helpful for you to share with Lily. Okay, and speak of the devil, let's look at the master plan. So, the master plan is a new report. So I'm just going to show you a copy of one. You can download this in the online system, but I'm just going to open up this report and show it to you. So this is what the master plan looks like. It takes everything, all the work that you've done this year, and it puts it all together into one report. So I'm going to show you this report this is actually one of our schools that's going through, that's working with us this year that we've just renamed Anytown High School. But I'm going to walk through this report with you. When you get to the online system, there will be this, you'll already have right now, this report is created for your school. So the first thing I want to point out is that if there's anything on this report that you want to change, we've given you links right here at the top where you can edit any parts of this plan. So it'll take you directly to the edit page. Okay, so on this report, the first thing that's come up is one of their focus priority goals. This is a high school example, but you can easily envision a middle school example or an elementary school example. So one of their focus goals was that every student would have a written plan for their future that includes all these different components, their potential careers, a post-secondary education plan, a high school course plan, a testing plan, and on and on. So we know what the choices that we want kids to make, and then we know which students we've put in. So in this case, the school wants this for all students, not just for their 9th graders, not just for their Hispanic students, but every kid in the building. So in this section of the report, we know that what the choice is and what the students are that you want to make that choice. When you review this part, we're wanting to look here for clarity. Does the goal make sense? Is it going to be clear to somebody who has, no clue about your school or your program? So, so just make sure that this is very clearly written here. Then, and if not, we can go back to, priority goals here and follow that link and just edit it. Okay, then we have the data target. So we know in this case, and this is really important information, that school wants to get from 28% to 100%. And so when I read the rest of this report, I have to have that in mind. That's going to be key. Again, if you read this and you're thinking, oh gosh, that shouldn't have been 100%, it should have been 50%, you can go right up here and edit it right away. So, okay, now there's what I'm trying to do. Now I want to see if I have the right things in place that will make this happen. So, because pretty much, you've designed this plan kind of with the promise to folks that this is how we're going to drive our data next year. So the first thing I want to do is I want to come down here and look at the knowledge statements. I've only given you one of the knowledge statements. This school had several, but I'm just giving you as an example one. So I'm reading all of the knowledge statements and I'm saying, okay, if kids know this stuff, would they be likely to make this choice? So you can see the first one they have is students need to know how to use our school's success plan template. There's going to be a lot of things that kids need to know to make this choice, but this is a big one. They need to understand the template. So this is the knowledge, and then in the next section, we're identifying all of the activities that the school has put in place where we're going to teach this knowledge. So I can see I'm starting out with, 9th grade parent meetings, I'm enrolling new students. One of the things that we want to check in this section is, do all of these activities, if they're all implemented fully and with integrity, do they have the capacity for helping kids learn this knowledge? So I really want to carefully examine these activities. The first thing I'm going to check is to see, are these activities titles and are the activity descriptions written in a way that's clear? And as I looked at these, I'm pretty happy with these, except there was one that I wasn't really sure what the school meant. It's this one on college applications. So when I read the description, I'm seeing the description of this activity is completing school report forms in an online system, complete mid-year forms. I don't really know what that means. So if I were in this school and I read that, I'd think, oh man, I need to go revise that, and I'd go revise it right now. So I don't know when I read this activity, is this something that counselors are doing or is this something students are doing? And how is this activity going to help kids understand the success plan template? So it's really kind of fuzzy for me, and that means it's probably also going to be fuzzy to the school board or the council members, or a parent that's reading this report as well to see, to learn about your school counseling program. So yeah, so just make sure all of this is really kind of clear. Then these activities are sequenced by the year that they begin with, the grade level that they begin with. So this 9th grade activity is coming up first, then here's something we're doing with all 4 grades, and then here's the 11th grade activity, and then 2 12th grade activities. So one of the things that I want to check for is to see, do we have, is there a sequence to these activities so that we're introducing content, then we're reinforcing it, and then we're asking kids to use this information in some way. So we can see, this is great. We're going to introduce here in this 9th grade activity. We're introducing to this, and this activity is going to be grades 9, 12. So yeah, we kind of have a sequence in here. That's good. Then I'm also looking for, in terms of these activities, I'm also find something that's really important to look at is the percent that are served. So, and I'm really trying to see, especially because on this one I want to get to 100%, I need to find activities that are working with 100% of the kids. So So as I look at this, I see here's 100%, but this is 100% of the parents. That doesn't necessarily mean that the parents are conveying this information to their ninth grade kids. This is 100% of enrolling of the new students. That doesn't necessarily get across to every ninth grader. The student ambassadors is only at 50%. Activity period, counselors will meet with all their students during activity period to complete various activities, including the student success plan. So bingo, this is where it's going to happen. This is one of the most important activities because we're introducing this and then going to reinforce and then use. So we're trying to kind of see, does this make sense in terms of the goal, getting to 100% of the kids, and then finding a place where we're going to actually reach 100% of the kids. So, okay, so that's percent served. You'll see here that we have the start year in that where we're doing this, and the start year for some of these is the current year. They're already doing it, but for some years this is something new. It hasn't, something we have planned for next year. On activity provider, this is not applicable. If the activity provider that is listed here had been community, then the name of the organization, the Kiwanis Club or the Chamber of Commerce or whoever, would appear as the activity provider. But since this is a counselor delivery method, we know that the providers are the counselors. So, okay, so that's this report. What we would suggest that you do is to meet with your steering team or some leaders from your steering team and just go through this report. And I would, for each of your focus goals where we have a data target, I would ask, are we clear with our verbiage? Do we have a sequence of instruction where it's introduce, reinforce, and then use? Whatever the data target is up here, are we really doing something that's going to, get us this kind of growth? And when I look at this one and I see, the number of activities that they have, how it is introduced and then reinforced and then used. When I see a big activity here during activity period where the counselors are meeting with all kids, I do think that this school probably has really high promise of getting from 28% to 100%. So just look at this report. One other thing I wanted to mention, especially for a goal like this, is that this school right now has only used survey data as their evaluation data. My guess is because this is survey data, they're probably never going to get to 100%, even though they may be at 100%. But they're depending on students to give them that information. Chances are some students are going to blow off the survey and not answer this question correctly on the survey. Other kids may not realize that when the survey talks about this written plan, that in-house in their school, this is called a success plan. So that's the same thing. Even though they have a written plan, they might not know that because it's called something different. So this school might want to go back and add an additional data target that says that they're going to count how many success plans they have in file in the counselor's office. So that they are not dependent on student responses for that data, that they're dependent on something that they have more control over, rather than the student's memory of that or knowledge of that. So I would, if I were the school, I would keep both of these on there, because I think that if they have 100% that they can count of success plans that are in their office, but this number is only coming up on the follow-up data on the survey, it's only coming up with 30%, then that says something. Why don't kids know that they have this success plan? Might help them further think about the programming that they're providing. So that is what the plan looks like. And again, this would go on probably for several pages, because for every single one of their knowledge statements, it's going to have this kind of report. So Do you have the knowledge statements do you need? Do you have the activities that you need? Does everything make sense? If you are meeting with your principal or your school board or a funder and you need to give them a snapshot of your whole program, I think this is the report to use. It shows your goals, it shows your knowledge statements, it shows your activities. It's just, I think it's a really nice report that brings together everything that you've done in your foundations. So, okay, go back to this report. So that's the master plan. Here's the review that we just talked about. So clarity, data targets, knowledge statements, that's kind of what we just talked about. And then another report that brings everything together is the master calendar. I'll show you that in a second. What we're looking for in the master calendar brings in all of your activities for the whole year into one place. And we really would like you to just take a look at that report and to ask, do we really have the capacity to do all these things? If not, then this is the place to make an adjustment. There's two ways that you could adjust. If you look at that report and you think, holy moly, there's no way we can do all of this. It's way too much. We put off way too much. You can say, one adjustment you could make is to get additional resources, to think again, how can we get more time? How can we get more funding? How can we get the materials that we need? So to think about bringing in more resources, or if you don't think there's going to be that possibility, then to think about, okay, what activities are you going to cut because you just don't have time to do everything. You may decide to not only cut an individual activity, but to cut out an entire focus goal. So again, if you feel like you're over capacity, we really need to make some adjustments here. If you are dropping out a focus goal and all the activities that go with it, I think that's probably a time when you probably need to go back to your council and just let everybody know, whoa, we've rethought this and we need to make some adjustments. If you're dropping out an activity that was really important to your council, I would go back to your council with that as well. But if you're doing a minor thing like changing the wording on one of your activity descriptions so that it's more clear, those more minor adjustments, I think it's probably fine not to go back to your council with those. And again, that's going to be different for each individual school. If your council, has really been involved with every single word that's gone into the computer, then you're probably going to want to go back to your council with every single little adjustment. But if not, I would just go back to your council if you're making big omissions, omitting a priority goal or focus goal, or dropping out an activity. Then remember too, that if you are dropping out activities, we would like you to call our team member, Debbie or Janet, so that we can help you think through where might this get you into trouble in terms of meeting all the criteria for the Gold Star and RAMP awards. So, okay, so here's what this master calendar looks like. The master calendar looks like this. So what the computer has done is that when you entered activities and you told us what months you were going to do them in, it just sorted them by months. So you can see that, some of these activities are happening, every month. Here's 504 plan. That's happening in August, it's happening in September, it's happening again in October. But there are other activities that only happen, once. So fall senior meetings are only happening in September, in October. They're not going on into November and December. Those are going to be finished by then. So this report, when you look at it, is kind of overwhelming. I love this report because it really shows everyone everything that school counselors do. It's no wonder the counselors are busy because all these things are on their plate. I think it also gives more gives people maybe more of a reason to take some of the non-program things off of your plate, or to think about the rationale for having a teacher advisor program, so you can move some of these things into a teacher advisor program. So I really like this report. There's another tool that you have coming up, I'll show you in a second, called the Gantt chart. That's a tool where if there's a to-do list that you want, where you only drop in the things that happen in specific months, not the ongoing things that you do every month, you can drop those into a Gantt report, and that will kind of be like a to-do list for you for the year. So, okay, so that's that report. Just wanted to draw this to your attention. And again, if this feels totally overwhelming, like, how are we going to have more time to do these things that we have planned for next year, or anything that's new, then it's time to make some adjustments. Okay, so that's that. So preparing to implement. There's 3 things that I want to talk about here that we'd like you to prepare this month. These are kind of the odds and ends things to get ready before you can submit your plan for Gold Star and Ramp. One is, and I'll show you this in a second, the Gantt chart generator. This is optional. You do not have to do this to-do list. This is where, if you want to, you would just list the major tasks that are to be completed each month. So that's optional. The budget, we have a budget generator tool for you, and that's where you will just talk about what money is available and how you're going to spend it next year. If you don't have a budget, instead of submitting a budget, you would submit a letter or a memo asking someone for funding. So it might be a memo to your principal saying, I'd really like to have this much funding for our program. Principal may say no, but at least we've asked. Or it might be a letter to your Chamber of Commerce asking for funding to do some career activities. So it's either a budget for money that you have, or if you have no money, it's a letter or a memo asking for money. So, okay. Then in the lesson plans, I'll show you how those are entered also in a second. I do want to cover here, though, what the requirements are for the lesson plans. So the minimum number of lesson plans that for Gold Star and Ramp you're required to submit is 9. There should be 3 social emotional lessons, 3 academic lessons, and 3 career lessons within this 9. Then also within the 9 or more, there has to be 1 lesson where you've done something specific in that lesson to target a student group. For example, let's say you're doing a lesson in a high school or a middle school or even an elementary that is about STEM careers. So you're going to teach kids about science, technology, engineering, and math careers. And you know that right now your boys are considering those careers at a greater rate than your girls. So this is a lesson that we could do for all kids, but when we're bringing in speakers to speak about the STEM careers, we're making sure that a lot of those speakers are females to engage your girls, female students at a greater rate. So a GAP lesson plan could be a lesson plan that you're doing with all kids, but you're focusing on doing something that would engage a student group at a different rate. So, okay, so that's the gap closer lesson plan, and that could be, one of the 9. And then one of the requirements is that you have lesson plans, that you do group counseling, and that you have lesson plans for one of your groups. And if it's a group that meets 5 times, then we need to do 5 lesson plans. If they meet 8 times, then we're doing 8 lesson plans. So chances are that when you get these group plans in place, you may be at more than 9 lessons. So again, within this 9 or more, you've got 3 that are predominantly social emotional, 3 that are predominantly academic, 3 that are mostly career, 1 that's a gap closer, And then for one of your groups, you've got a separate lesson plan for each of the group lessons that you're doing. Okay, so I'm going to talk about professional development in a moment, and I'm going to talk about program advocacy in a moment. We'll go through those when we go through the online system. So I'm going to go now to the online system, and we'll pull up the counselor tab. So we've been working over here on the foundations tab. Since all the foundations are now finished and we're now implementing, I'm going to go to the counselor tab. We've given you on this tab a couple of shortcuts to the master plan and also the master calendar. We've given you a shortcut to where you can enter or revise activities. And then here are the quick tasks for this month. So this Gantt chart, I'm not going to go over this. It's pretty self-explanatory. You just enter activities and it puts it into a timeline chart for you. This is optional. You don't have to do this. It's just an extra tool if you'd like to have like a to-do list to share, with your department or your principal. On the program budget, this is really easy to use. I'm going to use the Enter Edit button to begin with. So if you have a budget, you're saying, okay, this is the budget for 2018-19. You're going to put the expenditure in here, so SAT prep booklet. You're going to say what line item this comes from, materials. You're going to do budget notes that you're ordering 35 booklets. Spell at $12 each, and then do the math and put that amount in there. Let's say I'm going to do it $10 each because I can do that math really easily in my head. That gives us $350 for that line item. And you can see you'll have a running total down here. Then you can add another budget item and another one pops up. So put that in, do that total. You can see how my total. When you print the report, it's going to take all of your budgeted items and sort them by line item. So you'll end up with a nice little budget that will come out for your department. And then make sure you click Save, which I won't do because this is an actual school that we're demonstrating with. Yeah, click Save and that will get you your budget. So I'm going to go back, and again, we'll click on the Counselor tab. That's the budget. On your lesson plan, one other thing, if you're uploading a request for funding, this is the uploader button. Just click that and that will allow you to upload a file from your computer. Okay, then let's look at lesson plans. Remember, there's a minimum of 9 required. You have to hit all these things. When I go to enter a lesson plan, there's a couple of shortcuts that are in here that I'd like to point out. So I'm going to hit the Enter Edit, and let's say that I want to enter lesson plans. I'm not really sure what activities I want to put lesson plans in for. This is just a report you can open up here that'll give you your list of activities, so you can be kind of considering which activities do we want to put lesson plans in for. So let's say you open up that list of activities and you see one is a career interest inventory that you're going to do with your 5th graders or your 9th graders, but you don't have a lesson yet in mind. One thing you can do that would be a huge shortcut is you can go in here to our tools. This is a database of all of the lesson plans that are in our system, like thousands. And I can put in I can do a search. So I'm going to just search for career interest, and I can search, and every lesson plan that has those words in it. I can further narrow down that search by saying I want a career interest for 7th graders or for 5th graders, or I only want plans for free and reduced lunch students, or I only want to do classroom guidance lessons. There's lots of different ways that you can search. So I'm just going to search by the word career interest and see what comes up. So the computer's telling me that there's 9 plans. One of the things that we've done to help you kind of look at the strength of these plans is in the reports. So here's the first school's report. You can see that this was entered by Bridget Helms at Oak Hill Elementary. And there were 2 schools that liked this lesson plan enough that they imported it into their school's program. So that will save you a lot of time. You don't have to retype everything. If you find a lesson that you like, you can import it. All you have to do is click on Import into My School's lesson plans. This takes everything that Bridget entered, and it'll put it into your program. At the very end of it, there'll be a citation to Bridget and her school, so we know, that is the reference or the citation of where this lesson plan came from. So once it gets into your system, you can tweak it. If you want to change, maybe Bridget had that in there for her 5th graders, and you're going to do it with your 4th graders or your 6th graders. You can adjust that and tweak it in your system. So, so as you scroll down, you can kind of look at, here's one that 2 schools have entered. If I scroll down here, here's one that 23 schools have imported into theirs. When I look at this plan, if I view the full lesson plan, one of the things I see about this plan is that this author, actually this happens to be one of my lesson plans that I've entered, but we've provided resources for the school. So there's a quick career interest inventory in there, as well as a guidance portfolio template. So, and then we've given, an online reference as well. So yeah, some of these, the author may have given you resources. We ask you not to include a resource that's been copyrighted, but if it's something original that you want to share, that would be great. You can cite copyrighted work, you just can't include it and copy it in here. So that's lesson plans. So you can enter one from scratch, or you can search for others. If I enter one from scratch, I'm going to go back to the process page, click on counselor, and I'm going down to lesson plans, enter, and this time I'm going to enter a plan that I create. And here I'm just going to go to that enter button. This is where I put in the title, what grade levels I do it with, who my targeted students are. For one of your activities, for the GAP activity, one of these has to be selected. So if you're trying to close the gap in gender, for female or male, if it's in paid lunch or reduced lunch, whatever it is, make sure that at least one of your activities has a subgroup, a student group selected. So, so I'm just, checking what the setting is, where am I doing this guidance activity, the indicators the activity is going to cover, a summary of the activity, how much time this is taking, the procedure so that another counselor could copy what you did, evaluation, how you're going to evaluate the activity, what kind of resources you need, and here's where you can upload a resource as well. So you can upload resources or just list them, and you could list, a resource and then put in the website where people can access that, or just upload the resources. Citation, you can include copyright materials in the resources needed, but don't reproduce any copyrighted materials. If you are citing resources, we want to cite your source here. And then do you need a partner to do this with? Are you doing this in your teacher advisor program, or is there a community organization that's helping you, whatever? And then save. Once all at the top is filled in, this bottom part will become live. So you'll say, yes, my lesson plan is complete. And then there's a question, do you give ASA, our organization, permission to make your lesson plan part of our database that people can find when they search our database? So we hope you'll say yes there. And then any additional information, contact information that would appear in your lesson plan, if you want to include that as well, that would be wonderful. because then if people have questions about the lesson, they can, send you an email and say, how did you do this, or did you find that, or, or whatever. So, okay, so that's that part. Go back to the process page, and go back to counselor tab, go back to, we just hit all the preparation step. Now I'm going to look at professional development. You'll notice in professional development that on both of these there is not a web-based template. Instead, you're going to upload things. So I want to talk about what you would upload. So professional development evidence, any of the RSC updates that you've gotten from us, anything that would give evidence that you've participated in RSC would be evidence that you've done professional development. So an agenda from us, a PowerPoint presentation from us, just anything. So don't reinvent the wheel here. Just take something that you already have from us and upload that as your professional development evidence. You don't have to use us. You could do like a program from an ISCA conference or an ASCA conference, or something else as well. But you're all doing RSC or GAK, so upload something from us would be fine here. On the next one, on professional association membership evidence, that could be a copy of a membership card. It could be like, I probably couldn't find my membership card for ISCA right now, but I could, or ASCA, but I could sure put my hands on an ASCA magazine, the ASCA counselor, school counselor. So on the cover of that magazine is a little mailing label that identifies that it came to me. That's proof that I'm a member of ASCA. So what do you have that a member would have that you could upload to show that you're a member of a professional association? Only one counselor in the building needs to be a member of that association. The assumption is that if they're a member of ICAC, for example, they're bringing back information for the other counselors. So just one counselor has to be a member. So, okay, so that's professional development. Easy peasy, just upload stuff that you already have. On program advocacy, I want to look at the narrative questions to begin with. That you see there is an enter button, so we do have a template for you. And these are just narrative questions that are questions about things that we couldn't envision a school having documentation for. So on counseling services, when you open this up, there's just going to be a question box. The question's going to say, how do you provide counseling services? I would suggest you not write books on this. All you need to do is say, we provide, and then maybe bullet out your services. We provide individual brief counseling. We provide group counseling. We provide crisis counseling. So how do you provide the social emotional counseling for kids who are in needs of responsive services? How do you provide consultations? How do you provide referrals? So a lot of these are just going to be text boxes. There'll be a question on top of the text box, and you just fill it in. On some of these, there will be questions that we have preloaded the answers to because we think we know what the answers are. So when they ask you what's your philosophy, for us that's like what's your vision. When you open that one up, you'll get the there you go. You get the question, how was your vision statement developed? And then we auto-loaded this, preloaded it for you. So if you followed our process perfectly, this would be an answer for your question. And if you tweaked our process at all, you'd want to go in and adjust this. So yeah, so that's all there. So again, if you have several counselors in your building, I think I would just delegate these. Ask one counselor to take the first 7, the next counselor to take the next 7, and just go in and write a minimum. Don't write books and books and books, but just a basic description of whatever the answer is to the prompts that are there. So okay. So that's the narrative questions. I'm going to go back to, scroll up here, go back to the counselor tab, and I'm going to scroll down now to the next one. Next one is job description. We have in the tools section here, we've given you a sample job description that aligns with our RSC and GAK language and kind of what counselors in RSC and GAK schools do. So if you don't have a job description, I would just download this one and tweak it. That should be fairly quick and easy. If you do have a job description, just upload it. Now, in this section, this is actually one thing that ASCA DOE requires. It's the individual counselor management agreement. There are 3 parts to this agreement, and we can just do the 3 parts separately. In the first part, what this agreement is, the agreement is done to generate a discussion between the principal and each school counselor. So in the first part, in the individual counselor management agreement, for each individual counselor, in the first part, the answer is going to be the same. It's things like, what are your program goals? What's the demographics of your building? So in this part, what we want to do is just one person go in and answer these questions. So you would just, go through and edit anything that needs to be edited, fill in things that are blank. So these are all program questions that would be the same for every counselor. So, okay, so that's part 1 of this form. Go back to the counselor tab. In part 2, this is a section that is different for every counselor, and we need each counselor to fill out. It's a 1-pager. So I'm going to download the 1-pager. Down it comes. I'm going to upload it or open it. And here's what it is. We're asking each individual counselor, what professional development are you doing next year? What's your caseload for next year? I'm responsible for serving how many students? What kind of counseling activities do you implement for your department? Do you have any collaboration responsibilities? Do you collaborate with your, do you work with your school improvement team? Do you work with the, department chair meetings? Which of these things is this individual counselor responsible for? And what are this individual counselor's hours? It might be for some counselors, might be on a part-time basis, so their hours may be different than other counselors. So this would be really quick to fill out, and just then put all those for all counselors together as one PDF, and then upload that to our system. Okay, so then this last part of this form is, in this form I'm going to download, this is a 1-pager I'm going to download, it's the signature page. So in this part, we're asking the principal, have you read the annual counselor agreement report? So the program part, that is the same for all the counselors, and then each of the individual counselor parts. So it would be part 1 and part 2 of this. Have you read the 1-pager for every counselor? And have you discussed, or do you have a plan to discuss in the future, any concerns that have jumped out at you as you read these reports? So the principal signs off. The counselor then, each counselor in the building does the same thing. I have read the annual counselor agreement report. I have discussed any concerns, or I will discuss any concerns that I have with the principal. And so each counselor signs off. Okay, so that's that. We're doing this a little bit different way this year, so that not every counselor had to be responsible for writing down all the program parts. I think this will save you a lot of time this year. Okay, so that said, let's move on. Almost to the bottom. This is another 1-pager that you would sign and then upload. So I'm going to download this assurances statement. These are things that, again, we needed to check on but had no way of checking, so we're just asking you to assure us that these things are true. One is that your school counseling program meets all rules and regulations found within the state, within your state code. So, are you doing the things that are required of school counselors in the state code? Graduation plan comes to mind. Is your counseling program addressing bullying? That comes to mind. Your district may have a way to do that that does not involve the counselors, if so, fine. But, we want to be thinking about the types of things that are required by state code and are the counselors doing these things. Next one asks you that you're assuring us that anyone who provides counseling activities like individual brief counseling, solutions-focused counseling, group counseling, crisis counseling, consultation, the mental health counseling, that this is assuring us that the providers of those activities are licensed school counselors or school social workers or school psychs. So your group guidance, where we're teaching kids, that's fine to have that not be a licensed counselor. But the ongoing social personal counseling needs to be a licensed professional. Group counseling needs to be a licensed professional. So that means if you're maybe in an elementary school where you don't have a licensed helping professional, that means you can still do the guidance activities. You just wouldn't be able to have counseling activities in your program where we're doing responsive, because kids have an issue, responsive work with those kids. Okay, the next one is that the whole school counseling program is coordinated by a licensed school counselor. If you do not have a licensed school counselor on staff in your building, you can have a licensed counselor in another building coordinate your program. When schools do that, we would like to see that licensed counselor be a member of your steering team or of your council, so that licensed counselor is kind of looking to see, are we following the ASCA ethical standards? Are we making sure that only licensed professionals provide mental health counseling? So that's a way to look at this if you do not have a licensed school counselor housed in your school. Next one's asking you, do you follow ASCA's ethical standards? Do you have private space that promotes confidentiality? And do the exhibits that are in your portfolio, all the work that you've entered, everything that you've uploaded, do they accurately represent your school counseling program and practices? So then, we just need that counselor to sign off on each of these, the principal to sign off on each of those, and then just upload that to us. Okay, so that's that one. So program brochure. We know a lot of you have brochures already. This does not have to be a paper brochure. It could be, something that's like a brochure, but it's part of a website would be fine. If that's the case, print it and then upload it so that we can take a look at that. If you don't have a brochure, this link would get you to lots of samples of different schools' program brochures. So you'd have lots of different things that you could download and then tweak to make them your own, as long as they're not copyrighted. Then public relations evidence, you're uploading that. That could be anything where you're talking about your program to others. So if you did a presentation to your school board about your program, and you can get an agenda that shows that on the agenda, just upload the agenda. If you did a presentation to your faculty and you've got an agenda for your faculty meeting that shows that you did that, upload that. If you got the Lilly grant and there was a newspaper article about that, that talked about your program, you can upload that. So anything where you're helping the public understand your school counseling program, just look for some documentation and just upload it to us. Same thing on networking evidence. If you've been to a place, like if you've been to some of our workshops where counselors network with other counselors face-to-face, You could, count that as your networking. If you meet with all of your counselors as a district or as a county, that's networking. Upload some evidence of that. If you've ever submitted something on Counselor Talk to ask a question or to respond to a question, that's networking. So just print that out and upload it. So again, most of these things in this program advocacy will be things that you're already doing. We just need you to document that. The last one is asking for you to present your school counseling program portfolio to your school board. And what that would be is just to do a presentation, and I would probably use the that master plan that we looked at earlier in this webinar, and present that to your school board. Here are our goals, here are the activities that we're doing, and kind of showing them what you're trying to accomplish and how you're going to pull that off. So yeah, so if you don't have a school board meeting between now and June 15th, we have an alternate thing that you can do. Please talk with Debbie or Janet, and we'll kind of help you understand how to do that. But we think these face-to-face appointments with the face-to-face presentations with the school board are really good. On this entire page, everything is due on June 15th. You'll see there's a couple of things that there's a typo. We'll get those cleaned up today. But everything, all of your work on RSC or GAK should be finished by June 15th. Okay, so a couple of other little things. One is on the, let's see, I got this down here. On the Foundations tab, if you have been logging your work with us for PGP points, you can see that's the very last thing to do. So sometime before June 15th, there will be that's when you have to email attached to us. So download this report, and then on the form it tells you where to email attach that form to for your PGPs. There's no charge for that on our end. We just process those, and you're good to go. And then one other thing I wanted to point out here is that actually, let me go back to the Counselor tab. At the bottom of the Counselor tab, come back to Foundations. When everything on this page meets criteria, so everything's green, meets criteria, and everything on the Counselor tab meets criteria, you have done everything you need to do for Gold Star and RAMP. So 2 steps. First thing you need to do is to let us know that you are completely finished with your document. And then we will, this will all say meets criteria, so it's just kind of we just want to know that you're finished. And you're not going to make any edits after we've looked at and reviewed things and said meets criteria up here. So no more edits. You're going to hit submit button. That will start several things in process. One is because all these things that says meets criteria, that actually is, at this point, you'll be qualified for Gold Star. So we only want to hit this button, though, when everything says meets criteria. Then we will double check to make sure that everything meets criteria, and then the status here will say meets criteria for everything. And at that point, you've got the Gold Star Award. So immediately, or almost immediately, you will receive an email from Amanda Cullen at DOE that explains that you've earned the Gold Star Award. There should be no surprise if everything up here and on the Foundation tab says meets criteria, you've got it. So immediately the email will come from Amanda, and she will explain to you in that email when the award will be presented. There's a form that you need to send to ASCA with a check, because ASCA charges for the RAMP award. She'll tell you how to get that form and all of that. So So yeah, so that should be good to go. If you want to monitor that list, when you hit this button, a list of all of the schools that have earned Gold Star in the 2018 cohort, which is you guys, a list of all the schools that have earned Gold Star will pop up there. Occasionally, we have a school that thinks that they've submitted this button and they forgot to, and they're really surprised because they're not on the approved list. So just to make sure that everything, has worked and you hit that button, and just a kind of a reassurance for you, just open this report up and make sure that your school appears there. If not, for some reason, contact us. And although we've never had a glitch with this part, but yeah, if for some reason your name doesn't appear, let us know. Okay. Then the other thing is that once everything meets criteria and you're all happy and you've got the Gold Star Award, we really encourage you to publish your portfolio online. So you can see how that appears right here. You're going to hit Publish Portfolio, and what we're telling you here is that if you choose to publish your portfolio online, these things will become available for the public to see. So if I publish my portfolio, I can hit this button and unpublish it in a flash. So if you publish it and then decide, oh no, I really didn't want to share all that stuff, you can just hit this button again and unpublish it. If you want to publish it and see what it looks like and then unpublish it, that's fine too. Here is a place where we can view published portfolios. We've been demonstrating with Fishers High School, so I just open up their page. So here's what their published portfolio page looks like. When the public comes in, they're not going to see the links on the left, but they will be able to open up your roster, your council roster, your vision statement, your master plan, the priority goals, your activities, and your calendar for the year. So we're in the process of updating this page right now. But then what you could do is from your school's website, you could link to this URL up here, so that from you could put a link on your school's website that said school counseling program that went to this page that kind of gives a little blurb about how the program was put together, and then where they can open up each of these products of the process. This part in the center here, the school counseling activities are being delivered in a coordinated manner by. When you check the delivery methods, they pop up here. So if the only people that are delivering the program are your school counselors, only counselors will appear here. Yeah, and then at the bottom it'll say your school has received the Gold Star School Counseling Award in, and then each of the years, the first year that you got it, and each of the renewal years will pop up there. Or if you don't have it yet, it'll say it does, has not yet received it. As soon as you receive it, that will change into the date that you received it in. Okay, I think that's it. Let me go back and see if there's any other topics we need to do here. So those are your end tasks. We're talking about that. Oh, so next year, let's talk about next year, and I think this is the last slide. Next year, you will hear from us 3 times. On October 9th, you'll get a GAK update email from or an RSC update email from us. Let me back up. This is for RSC schools, not for GAK schools. We went over the GAK calendar with you in your workshop, so let me just spell out. This is RSC only. In there. There we go. So for RSC, if you'll have contact with us 3 times next year. One is that we'll do an email to you on October 9th or very close to there. That's just kind of saying welcome back to school, and here's all of your activities and the calendar, and we wish you lots of luck as you go through this. We'll recommend that you blow up enlarge the calendar into a poster, and then every time you do one of those activities, you just highlight it or check it off as you go through, to help communicate to everybody all the activities that you do each month. I liked in my own school to put that up in a very public place so that everybody saw, everything that we were doing. So then we'll send you another email in January giving you a heads up that the survey is going to be opening in March and asking you to be thinking about getting kids to the computer between March and June to take the survey again. We really recommend that you survey annually so you can start to see the impact of your activities on your student goals. So then on April 23rd, 2019, we'll do a webinar for the schools that are, we call them annual update schools. They're schools that are not yet to the point where they need to renew their Gold Star, but we do want to have this annual meeting with your council. So once a year, in between now and 3 years from now, when you renew your Gold Star, we'd suggest that you have an annual meeting with your council. Some schools like to have 2 meetings. They'll do a meeting, halfway through the year and then an annual one at the end of the year. So in that annual meeting, what you'll do is you'll review all the foundations and make changes if you need to. Do you need to change your vision statement? Probably not. That's not one that frequently changes. But think about that school that we looked at their master plan that had a focus goal that all the kids would have a success plan or a 4-year high school course plan. And they had all that programming in place that was going to happen in 1 year. My guess is that will no longer need to be a focus goal at the end of next year. They'll already have that in place. All the kids will already have that success plan. So they can probably move that back to just priority status and take something else onto their plate as a focus goal. So we'll do that kind of tweaking once a year. We'll look at the student survey data to see, are there any new issues that have come up? So that's something to look at. That reminds me, Debbie, I know that as you're listening to this, you're thinking, oh, she forgot to do that. I want to talk about one new thing that we've done on the Foundations tab that I forgot to do earlier. On the excuse me, on the Foundations tab, on section I have a frog in my throat. Excuse me. Let me get a swig of coffee here. Okay, much better. We have a new crosswalk. As we started looking at your reports, we found that we felt that some of the social emotional issues that you were identifying as root causes, everything worked well, but we felt like they were kind of disappearing among all the root causes. And we wanted to bring some attention to those social emotional issues that are in your root causes. So what we did, this will take you like 5 minutes to do. It's just a new form where you would list what is this theme, this social emotional concern that you've identified in those root causes. So for the number one root cause, or the number one social emotional concern across the state, has been just very much stress, student stress. So you would just, click stress. And then here we've listed all your counseling activities and all your guidance, personal, social activities, and which we just want you to check off which ones are addressing stress. In your GAK master plan, it'll show this is a social emotional issue that we've identified for our kids' stress, and here are the activities that we've put in place to deal with that. So so take you no time at all, but we just think that that's an important thing that we don't want to get lost in the master plan. Okay, so that's that. And then finally, looking forward again to next year, just back to the process tab. So next year, we've got these two tabs, Foundation tab and Counselor tab, finished. And then next year, we'll be working on the Evaluation tab. So on this one, we're going to be prepping for having that annual meeting with your council. We'll be giving you different ways to evaluate. So this is, for example, where you do the priority goal analysis. I can open that up right now, and we can see that this school just has one focus goal, and they said they were going to get from 28% to 100%. Next spring, we'll put the follow-up data in here so they can see, did we really get to 100%? And then in this analysis, it just talks about, did you meet the goal or not meet it? And what advice do you have for other schools that may also have this goal? So yeah, so you can see the evaluation, we've made it very simple, but this is, and you'll do that with your council next year in May or June at the end of next school year. So, okay, I think that is it. Debbie, let's see if we've got questions that have come in. Yep, that was the last slide. So Debbie, questions?
I don't see any questions.
Okay, I'm going to just pause for a minute, madly type in those questions if you have them quickly. And as you're doing that, it really has been a joy to, I mean, truly a joy to work with the schools going through RSC and GAK this year. This is really a time for celebration. I know that this has been so much work, but I hope you feel just astronomically proud of yourselves and your programs. You know, all those foundations are the foundations upon which you're building your activities, and you know, to think those through clearly, to do the root cause analysis so you can target your activities. I really think when you implement next year, your program is going to make a huge difference for kids. So that said, Debbie, last check. Any questions?
No questions, thanks.
Okay, anything for the good of the cause, Debbie, that you want to add?
Nope, I just want to thank everybody for their hard work and keep up that good work for your students and your schools.
Okay, sounds good. And our thanks to Debbie and Janet, too, for supporting the schools. We think they do a great job. We get really good feedback from the schools on their work, and I appreciate so much their input as well. So, okay, as always, call us if you get stuck or have questions, and I look forward to seeing a whole room full of schools and counselors next year at the ISCA conference go up to receive your plaques for the Gold Star School Counseling Award. So we'll see you face to face next fall as you do that, and as always, feel free again to call us if you have questions. Okay, everyone, thanks so much.